Been bugging you? Come on in. Let's go for a drive. I was telling my son Rogan that I was gonna do a What's Bugging You with Tim.
Yeah.
Like, who? Yeah. Tim Barnett from Stand to Reason.
Yeah. Who's that?
He said, who's that? He said, oh, is that red pen boy that likes pink Priuses?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he came to the reality
That's right.
conference.
That's right.
All of them made a joke about you.
I can't believe that's that's my legacy right there. Is the Prius.
Thanks to your coworkers.
Yeah,
All right, so
that's right.
You and Alisa Childers recently wrote a book.
We did.
Deconstructing Christianity, Deconstruction of Christianity.
Yeah, it's called the Deconstruction of Christianity, and we are looking at the kind of deconstruction movement that's happening. On social media.
So I work with young adults, students.
Okay.
I saw some of this happen as I went to college, but so many of their friends, and even some of them, as they leave home and as they leave this Christianity, especially that they've grown up in, they're questioning, which I think is normal.
Totally.
Who am I? What do I believe, and why do I believe it? Is it something?
Yeah.
Is it the same as what mom and dad told me to believe? But they're being encouraged to go a bit further than that.
Yeah.
Such that let's throw off all of this faith. Let's deconstruct. Let's break it down to some bare bones.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Maybe give us some insight.
Sure.
What's the trend?
Yeah.
And how would you actually define this deconstruction?
Well, let's start by saying there's nothing wrong with owning your own faith, right? I mean, oftentimes we're handed beliefs, especially when we're young. The belief that I have in God is a belief initially that I just received from my parents, like I received Christmas presents.
Yeah,
Here you go. God exists, and I said, okay. It wasn't until later on where I was like, wait a second, is that a true belief? Like, is there good reasons or good evidence for this? So I did that kind of questioning, and there was some doubts that came with that, some challenges. I think what's going on with deconstruction is a little different than that. It's not merely questioning or merely doubting. There's actually a process or methodology involved in how you go about kind of rethinking your faith or the beliefs that you were given as a child. And so in our book, we define deconstruction this way. We say it's a postmodern process of rethinking your faith without requiring scripture as a standard. And kind of all those words are really important, okay? Because we start with, it's a postmodern process, okay? Now, what we found is when you start to look into this movement, people using the hashtag deconstruction along with like hashtag exvangelical, the process they're doing isn't truth oriented. Like, that's not the goal. Something else is the goal. And oftentimes that's because they don't believe when it comes to religion that there really is truth, like objective truth that's out there. And that's kind of a symptom, I think, of our culture, right? When it comes to morality, when it comes to religion, it's like what's true for you is true for you, what's true for me is true for me, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so it's no wonder that when people deconstruct, they're going to go through a process that treats religious claims or religious beliefs as if it's a part of that kind of true for you, but not for me.
Right.
That postmodern.
So in this whole postmodern movement, I know deconstruction really used to be applied to a text in general.
That's right.
We can break it down. It's not so much about what the author meant. It's about how we receive it. So that's related. It's a little different when
it is related.
But it's related, right?
Totally. I think that you got Jacques Derrida, this French postmodern philosopher, and you're exactly right. He said the meaning from the author, and the author's intent, and the reader's meaning. There's no way to really adjudicate. They're both equally valid, right? It's not like one is more true than the other. Mm-hmm. And I think in a similar way, we approach our faith. We're not looking at the once for all delivered to the saints kind of faith, right? Going back to the original author's intent. But I am going to give my faith its own meaning. And in some cases, that means a new kind of progressive Christianity, so you deconstruct into that. Mm-hmm. Or maybe it's that I get rid of faith altogether and I end up in atheism. Frankly, most people end up in something like a new age kind of spirituality or a progressive Christianity, something like that. So that's the first part. It has to do with truth. It's a postmodern process. Okay. And then you have of rethinking your faith without requiring scripture as a standard. So now it has to do with authority. Mm-hmm. who's in charge? Who's the boss of those beliefs? And it's either going to be, you're going to have, the Bible is going to be central, or what we found is the self is central. And what we found over and over again when it comes to this movement, it's the self. I am able to say Paul was wrong. Moses got it wrong. Even Jesus got it wrong. So I am the authority, not Jesus. I'm the authority, not the text.
Seeing oneself as the authority, is this normally related to feelings, what one just simply embraces as truth, or is it argued for, here's why it's...
Well, in some cases, there may be some arguments, but I often think those arguments are a smokescreen, because at the bottom, it is just how I feel.
Okay.
And that's why apologetics doesn't really work. If someone's going through real deconstruction, as we just described it, offering up apologetic arguments like, well, have you considered this evidence or this reason? It's like, well, it's going to fall on deaf ears, because I didn't arrive at this new destination through deconstruction by evaluating the evidence and the reasons. I got here because this is how I feel. Whereas if a person, now I want to be clear, because some people use the word deconstruction and they really do want to know what's true. And in that case, I would say that's not really deconstruction, that's something else, and that's where arguments and evidence and reasons, that's where apologetics will come in handy.
This is related back to that first thing, like the questioning and asking, is this true, and trying to figure out whether or not it's true is a little different.
So I would always start with the question. If someone says, hey, I'm deconstructing my faith, I got a friend maybe who's going through that process, I'll say, well, what do you mean by deconstruction? And I want to know what you believe about truth, and I want to know who your authority is. Because where we go from here is going to depend on how you answer those two questions, right? And of course, if they say, well, I want to know what's true, and I want to know what the Bible really says about this, okay, perfect. Let's do that. Let's open the scriptures and do the deep dive. So we want to be clear about that, because there's a lot of people still using the word to mean a lot of different things. And so our book specifically, though, we're looking at this movement, and here's what's actually going on. I think we're opening a lot of people's eyes, because when you go type in hashtag deconstruction on social media, on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or whatever, you are catapulted into this world where there is no truth objectively, and there is no biblical authority. And
there is lots of stories.
And this is what's compelling for a lot of people, is I hear this story of someone who was raised in a Christian home. Typically, a lot of the deconstruction stories start with, here's my bona fides. Here's like, hey, I was at Awana, we were at youth group, we did this and that and the other thing, right? And that's like, see, I was a Christian, but here's where, and now I'm no longer. And then they tell the story, right? And I want you to be, our listeners, right, to be looking for those clues. Was it truth that they were oriented towards, or was it something else? Because what you find is, man, you listen to the deconstructionists themselves on TikTok, like these thought leaders, and they'll say things like, you know what, there's no correct destination when it comes to deconstruction. There's no right way to do it and no right destination. And that makes sense if it's postmodern. Like, think about, what's the right vacation destination? What do you think?
Well, for me or for you?
Yeah, that's right. For you, it may be, hey, we're in beautiful Colorado,
we're here,
right?
We're here right now at Pikes Peak.
That's right. This is absolutely beautiful. And people who love to hike, this is it. This is where they're coming. But if you like the beach, you're not coming here. You know what I'm saying? You're going to Hawaii, you're going to Jamaica, or wherever.
My wife gets angry at me that I moved her away from any beach.
Okay. Well, so your vacation destination just depends on you. And your religious destination, in the same way, just depends on you. And that's why there's no right way and no right destination. Again, postmodern.
Yes.
But when it comes to medicine, right, if you have type 1 juvenile diabetes, I can't say, well, what's the right medication for you? Right? That doesn't work. It is insulin. You need insulin or you die. So there is a correct destination, a correct way to treat that. And the problem is, as you've seen in your work and we've seen in our work, when you talk to most people in our culture, because of the influence of relativism, they think that religious claims belong in like that vacation destination, not in like medicine, you know, in insulin. So that would be one of the kind of hallmarks, one of the big important elements to understand about deconstruction.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, this is so good. So just understanding it, I think, is helpful now as we see students and friends beginning to deconstruct, and even the questions that you gave to ask. Okay, what do you mean by deconstruction? Mm-hmm. What kinds of questions are you asking?
Yeah.
Give us just a little more advice here.
Yeah.
I think as we kind of wrap up.
Yeah.
Just knowing about it isn't necessarily helpful.
No, it's not. It is an important part, because you got to know what you're up against here. You know, when you're in a conversation. So I want to know, what do you mean by deconstruction? Now, here's some advice, and there is, by the way, no just follow these 3 simple steps.
And stop your kid from deconstructing.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of people think, man, if I could just take you out for coffee, then that will somehow stop their deconstruction or pull them out of it or whatever. And let me just say this: they didn't deconstruct over coffee, and so they're not going to restore their face or reconstruct over coffee. In fact, I talked to a dad who said his daughter came to him and said, "I'm an atheist now. I've deconstructed." And he said, "When did this happen?" She said, "I've been watching an atheist YouTuber for the last 2 years." Wow. And so this is a long process. Yeah. So first thing I want to do is pray. Start there. God is the one who changes hearts, and he can change minds. And we want him to be a part of this process. You're not alone. There is hope. And so really lean into God and petition on behalf of your loved one who's deconstructing, that God would do whatever it takes to draw this person back to himself. So that'd be the first thing. You're gonna pray. You're gonna listen. I would make sure they understand it. If you do go out for coffee or a meal, or you're just hanging out, hey, just tell me about your story, and tell me about the process you've gone through, because I want to know. This is really important for them to share, so you know exactly where they're coming from.
The primary goal is not to fix them, but to hear them.
Just to hear. That's right. And someone needs to write a book on apologetic listening. Okay, how do we just listen better? And I think this was Jesus. He was so good at listening and understanding where people were coming from, and obviously using good questions to get there. We want to do some triage. Some people think that, man, if they share all this stuff about their testimony and or their deconversion story, and there's stuff from, hey, I no longer believe in a young earth, all the way over to I don't believe in God anymore and the resurrection. Well, do some triage here. What really matters? And a lot of people want to go straight to the age of the earth debate, and I'm thinking, no, that's the paper cut when they have a gunshot wound, right? Okay. So you want to treat the gunshot wound first. Do some triage. So let's talk about the big issue. Well, what's that? Well, who is Jesus?
Sure.
It just God exists. These are the big questions. You're gonna go there. You want to set boundaries, man. When you are talking to someone, you may be just overwhelmed by all the challenges that they bring up, right? That you've never even considered. So you want to make sure there's boundaries where you take one thing at a time, and you want to set boundaries for them too, because you might be a little aggressive in just dumping all kinds of information on them, trying to do your best to bring them back, but that can be overwhelming, and they may just want to cut you out because they see you as wow, we can't be friends anymore. All you want to do is convert me again or whatever.
Right, because now they've become the enemy. Exactly what I knew was going to happen when I deconstructed that.
And it's okay. Just if my daughters were to deconstruct, I would still want to be their dad. I'd want them to know I love you. Period. It's not I love you, but here's the cosmological argument. It's I love you. Period. And let's go for ice cream. And let's go for whatever. Let's go to a movie. Let's do the things that daughters and dads do, because I still love you. I'm going to try to stay calm as best I can. I've talked to so many parents who freaked, right? They found out.
That's my biggest advice for parents. I work with students, and okay, advice number 1, don't freak out.
Yeah, and you may want to freak out because it's natural. Hey, we've been going to church, and you're so surprised, and this is such a big deal. Faith is such an important thing.
Yeah, totally.
But take a deep breath.
Or at least don't freak out on the outside.
Yeah, that's right. So that's really important too, just to stay calm. Let them know, thank them. Hey, thanks for coming to me.
For trusting
of all
me
people, you trust me with this big thing, knowing that what I believe is going to be different from you, and yet you're still telling me. that's a huge thing. So just saying thank you. And then, of course, my kind of last thing would say, there is hope. Don't think that their story's over at this moment. Just because they've come to you and said, hey, I'm deconstructing. I'm holding out for hope. God can do immeasurably more than we ask or imagine. And we've seen people. I mean, when we're at Summit here, I just heard Christopher Yuan's story.
Yes,
and his mom prayed for 7 years. In the book, we talk about this being the Saturday. You know, Jesus crucified on Friday, resurrection hope comes on Sunday. What was it like in the Saturday, right? And for Angela, Christopher Yuan's mom, it was like, man, that was a long 7-year Saturday, not knowing what's going on. Is Christopher gonna come to Christ or not? You know, this kind of thing. And yet his Sunday was just around the corner, you know? So hope. Don't lose hope.
Yeah. Okay, if we want to go deeper on this,
Yeah.
Is there a book you could recommend?
If only someone had written a book called The Deconstruction of Christianity. Yeah, there is a book, and it's written by Alisa Childers and myself, and which is a fun process to go through. People can pick it up on Amazon or wherever books are sold. So that would be a great resource. We're actually working on an STRU that will be out kind of in the future. That will look at doubt and deconstruction. Articles on our website that I've written as well. So those would be a good place to start. And there are other works out there, other books out there that focus more on doubt than deconstruction. Right. And it could be that your loved one is more on that path, and they really do care about truth. And so I would definitely encourage a book on doubt, like Sean McDowell has a book called Set Adrift that just came out recently. That would be a great book, kind of in that world too. Yeah. So a couple resources there.
Okay, fantastic. And what if we just want to get to know you more and follow you? I've heard of this thing called Red Pen Logic. Is that?
Yeah, that's a thing. And so people, they want to follow me, they can check out Red Pen Logic with Mr. B.
Okay.
And this is something we started during COVID, actually, when the world shut down. Couldn't travel and speak, and so we started this thing on social media where we take out the red pen and we correct social media content.
Yeah, and it's super fun and engaging and
short, fun. Yeah. We try to be clear, and we're taking on the viral posts, you know, that are out there, and that people are sending me actually, like, man, what does Mr. B think about this? You know, how do I respond to this? And so that's what we're doing. We put out a video every week. So it's on YouTube, it's on Instagram. We're on TikTok as well under Original Mr. B. So you can find me on there too. Yeah.
Well, Tim, thanks so much for taking this ride with me and Roscoe. Appreciate it.
Thanks for the lift. This has been fun. I love this vehicle.
Yeah. Very cool.